All right, we're back. Football Trash Talk for Real Fans Pod. I don't even know if it's a podcast. I don't know what it's a Zoom call
It's
that we're
it's a meeting.
pretending.
It's a free flowing conversation that may touch on mature subjects. How about
It
that?
might.
Is that
It
fair?
might. I think the
Down to
obvious
do
place to
that.
start is the Super Bowl. I think. I'm shocked at what I'm not shocked at what the defense did because I felt going into the Super Bowl that the Tampa Bay defense was playing on a level like that is built for runs and to win the Super Bowl, right? And that's why I picked them. To hold Kansas City to 3 field goals was absolutely mind blowing to me.
Right. I think that's kind of like you said. It doesn't surprise me that the Tampa defense was good, but I think our expectations for what good against Kansas City was still going to be giving up 3-4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
I don't have the scores what everyone predicted in front of me, but I don't think anyone predicted Kansas City scoring less than 28 points. A few of us, I think you and I both had Tampa Bay scoring 30. We both had Tampa Bay winning and we both had them scoring 31.
Yep.
But I think you had something like 27 and I had 28 points for Kansas City. I don't know. Like, let me ask you this. If they were to go and replay that game like 10 more times or 9 more times, best out of 10, right? Do you think we'd see that exact same type of thing? Like, assuming they couldn't just obviously they would make adjustments and whatnot. I get that. But like, if we were to see that game as it is, no extra preparation, 10 more times, you really think they shut them out and only just keep them out of the end zone like 10 more times? Like, I just feel like that was more of a fluky thing than
So I don't know if they keep them out of the end zone, but I do know I think that they still stymie them, right? Like I think that the defense was just playing on a whole nother level. But if you also factor in all the drop passes, right? Like there was a ton of drop passes on the Kansas City side. People talked about the refs, right? And like I get irritated with that. Like the hate for Tom Brady is so strong. Like it's always got to be about the refs. Was it a touchy call? Probably, maybe, right? But like we never got to see if the same call would have been made for the Kansas City side because we never saw the long bomb to Tyreek Hill down the sideline where maybe we would have seen the same kind of pass interference call. That's just defense. That's just pressure. I don't think that anybody other than Patrick Mahomes could have been making some of those throws. But I just don't see them winning the game. I think Tampa Bay was just on another level.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that I think was most shocking is, I don't know. I don't follow Kansas City enough during the regular season to know, but I didn't think they had like a horrible. I don't think their offensive line is bad. Like if anything, it's mid-pack at worst. And they just ate that offensive line for lunch. Like it just there was no time to do anything. But yeah, even then, like Patrick Mahomes was still like, there was that one throw who was basically on his head and he still like hit the dude in the face mask or it hit him and he still dropped it. And it's just Patrick Mahomes in that game could not buy a break. The funny thing to me is like literally like 3 weeks ago, people were calling this a passing of the torch game. Yep. We were ready to crown Mahomes the new GOAT, like all this stuff. And now it's like he's a scrub. And now people are openly questioning if he's gonna make it again. Now, I will say there is a little bit to that. And the only reason why I'll say that is because the AFC is rough, man. Like all the good young quarterbacks are in the AFC. I can't think of a single who's a good young quarterback in the NFC. I honestly like the best quarterback in the NFC is obviously Rodgers, who's 37. Yep. The next is Brady's in the NFC. I don't know if Brady's the GOAT. I don't know if you gave me a choice between him or Rodgers today, I'd necessarily take Brady. I think Brady at this point in his career, Brady to me feels like he needs a little bit more around it, which all quarterbacks do, don't get me wrong, but I feel like Rodgers right now has the ability to do more with less than Brady does. I think Brady needs I think Brady's the type of guy where I feel like I keep thinking about, there was that ESPN show about, it was a, made for TV movie about Bobby Knight a few years ago, and he made this statement like, "Hey, you get me to the Sweet 16, I'll win this tournament for you." And I feel like that's Tom Brady. You get me to the AFC or the NFC Championship game, I will win the Super Bowl for you. Like that's what I feel he is, but you need to get him there. Like I think Aaron Rodgers, we could put on a few more teams, and he can do a little bit more with less. But yeah, there are I can't think of a single young quarterback who I'm like, yeah, sweet. Like this guy's gonna, be something someday in the NFC. I can't think of one.
So I mean, let's start with the NFC West. You got Russell, you have Kyler Murray, you got who else? You got Jimmy Garoppolo, and now you have Matthew Stafford, which is a wild card. So, like, what's going to happen there with the Rams? You know what I mean? Like,
I do like that. It's going to be interesting because we're going to finally find out if Stafford's been in Detroit this whole time and that's been his problem, or if Stafford was part of the problem. Because if nothing else, I will give Stafford this. Dude's a gamer. Like you go, once he got traded, all those videos come out, and I got reminded of that fun Cleveland game where he drives him down, basically has his arm ripped out of socket, still throws either the touchdown or the touchdown. He throws the touchdown, and they kick the extra point to win it. I'm like, oh, great, I remember that. But yeah, he's the X card. But I mean, I don't know. Do we think Kyler Murray's something special? I can't tell. I don't know if think
Kyler Murray special, or it's the fact that he has the ageless Larry Fitzgerald,
right,
and the Hopkins. Like, I mean, if Hopkins is legit, I think he's the best receiver in the game. It's what he does, shocks you all the time, and he just makes it happen. So I think when you have the best receiver in the game, you're going to look really good. Right. But we'll see. It's going to be year 3 for him now. So we're going to see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he's bad. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like he's a scrub. But I am saying like, I don't know if I look at him and say, oh yeah, this guy's destined to win multiple Super Bowls. I just don't see that. Getting back to Patrick Mahomes though, I really think, going forward, I kind of touched on it in a little video I made in the group earlier this week. I think he's going to have an Aaron Rodgers type career. I think he got his one early, or maybe it's going to be similar to Russell Wilson, where he's going to constantly, don't get me wrong, he's going to, from here on out, he's going to, until he retires, he's going to be considered a top 5 quarterback, if not the best quarterback in the league. It's him and Aaron Rodgers every year for the next couple of years at least. But I just think he signed that contract. The talent around him is eventually going to go away because they're all going to want to get paid. He's not going to have the talent he's got around him for the rest of his days. I think he's going to have a similar career arc to Aaron Rodgers. We're going to be held in this really high regard, and he'll constantly make playoff runs, but it's just never, there's going to be this invisible wall he just can't seem to get past. And I think that's where we're going to see him go from here on out.
Well, I think you got a couple other factors to throw in there. Let's just pretend that they stay the same. Let's say they keep all the talent, right? Like Buffalo's getting better. Josh Allen is a legit quarterback. Like everybody didn't think he could be a quarterback, but he's got the running ability. He's a beast. Like he's a linebacker with a lot of athletic skill. So they're going to be on their heels quite a bit. Depending on what Indianapolis brings in as their quarterback, they're going to be a problem. You have, who else do you have in the AFC? I mean, you got the Cleveland Browns. And I like Baker, right? But Baker is such a wild card, and I don't think they need to bring Odell back. I think they try to shop him, man.
We're gonna touch on that in a minute. But my thing about Baker is, the same kind of thing. You got to look at though what he's gone through too. So this was the end of his 3rd season, and he's had 4 different head coaches.
Yep.
4 different offensive coordinators. This is the 3rd set, completely new system he's had to learn. And those last 9 games, I mean, no, do I think, again, and I've touched on this in the past, do I think Baker's destined to be a top 5 quarterback? No. But I think top 12, and you can win with a top 12 quarterback if the rest of the pieces are right.
Yeah.
We only lost to the Chiefs by 5 points. I mean, that gets overlooked. Yeah, the first half didn't look great, and yeah, Patrick Mahomes did go out. I get that, but at the end of the day, we only lost that game by 5 points, and we're one missed call away from like going into halftime, possibly with the lead. So I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying we win that game because of that call, but I'm saying, it's a different complexion when you're up. I think we would have been up 3 or 4 had that helmet to helmet been called instead of giving the ball back to the Chiefs. So
I see that, and your running game is stellar, right?
yeah.
It's beyond, I think it's the best running game in the league. It's up there with the Titans, but Titans is just Henry, right? So like if Henry goes down, they're fucked. If Chubb goes down, you saw it this year. Kareem Hunt stepped right in, then they had another guy behind him. So
Yeah.
like they were able to play some football and maintain that level of running the ball. I think it really comes down to defenses for Kansas City, right? Like what defense is going to beat Kansas City? And we saw but can a defense play at that level week in and week out? Can they rise to that occasion consistently? Like I
Right.
think Tampa Bay can. Once they got grooving, they were just on fire week
Right.
after week after week.
Well, and I think one of the things that got overlooked this season was the fact that, it was a weird offseason. There wasn't any OTAs. So you have Brady coming in. Well, and every team across the league, you have players coming in. We saw with the Browns, they got blown out in their first game against the Ravens because they were installing a brand new offense and they didn't have any offseason to really install it and get used to it and get the terminology down and all that. So, I think next year we're going to kind of I think the league's going to normalize where we might see a couple teams take a step back as well as, some other teams. Like we'll see who's got the real systems and who's really set up for future success next year as things get a little bit more back to normal, and it'll be less, oh, we're down 4 players because of COVID, or one guy got COVID and 3 guys happen to share a bus with him one day. So they all have to sit out. And now we're like, taking all our meetings on Zoom and, and not actually out there running actual drills. So we'll see who's actually got what going forward. I think this year's kind of I don't want to say an asterisk year because everyone was going through the same thing, but I think it wouldn't completely surprise me if like some of the better teams this year, fingers crossed, not the Browns, but fall back and are more 9-7 or 10-6, or maybe even have a losing record, high losing record like a 7-9, just because teams it'll be a more normal situation for other teams.
I would agree with that. And I think there's another factor. Like there's a lot of QB carousel talk going on right now. And we don't know how that's going to play out. Like who's going to land where, what's going to happen. You have obviously the Deshaun Watson situation in Houston. Carson Wentz, Sam Darnold. You have 5 quarterbacks that 4 could go the top 4 picks in the draft, which I don't think has ever happened, right? But like legitimately, they can have 4 quarterbacks go for the top 4 picks in the draft, and then a 5th one in the top 12, right?
Right.
I mean, that's insane. That's 5 brand new quarterbacks. We don't we don't see quarterbacks sitting on the bench for a year much anymore. We see them thrown right in there, and they're proving that they could do it. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with some of these teams that should have been better had they had a better quarterback.
Right. Well, even Russ Wilson, there's grumblings that they might trade him or move him or whatever. And I don't know what the story is there. Why suddenly, because they just signed him. That was last year, right? That they signed him to the big contract. So I don't know why suddenly they're trying to move him, but that seems to be a marriage that's deteriorating. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he just is surveying the landscape and doesn't see the Seahawks, making it the next few years, and he wants to get another ring because he seems like that kind of guy. So we'll see. Speaking of people moving around, want to pivot a little to JJ Watt, get your thoughts on that. There have been some people in the group kicking around where they want to go. Honestly, at this point, and again, I get that I'm a Browns fan up front, but if he goes to Pittsburgh, like just to play with his brothers, like okay. I don't see, like, at this point in his career, like you can play with your brothers. Like, I just go for your ring, man. Like, don't ask for your release, because he's gonna end up taking less money. No one's gonna give him 17 million a year to go play for that. He's a name. Like, don't get me wrong, one of the best at his position, in the last 10 years, obviously, but the last 3 years haven't been kind. I can't think of the last time he played a full season. He's not going to get 17 million like he was making. So to take a reduced contract to go to a rebuild in Pittsburgh just to play with your brothers seems weird to me. Like, that doesn't seem like the move I'd make if I'm going to take, if that's the case, just freaking sit out, play one more year in Houston, get your 17 mil, and then go take a reduced contract to go play with your brothers in Pittsburgh. Let them rebuild for a year. So that's why I just don't see that as a logical choice for him.
So not a logical choice either, but like the system wise, what would make sense would be a system like the Eagles where they rotate their defensive line in. It's like a 50, unless you're Cox and Graham, like you're in and out consistently, right? Because that's all he's really good for right now is the second and third down pass rusher, and he's still a monster. I think Cleveland makes a lot of sense for him, man. Put him on the other end of Garrett. Forget about it. Like, and he can play interior line too. So like he can play anywhere on a line. So it makes more sense for Cleveland versus Pittsburgh. I don't think he's gonna go to Pittsburgh. Yeah, no, I get to play with my brothers. Woo, like I don't see it because I don't see them sustaining where they're at. If I had to rank that division, I got Cleveland and Baltimore at the top, and the Bengals and the Steelers at the bottom, and the Bengals are catching up fast.
Right. Yeah, like I said, this would be a different situation to me if his contract had ended and now he's a free agent. Then talk to Pittsburgh makes sense to me. Like, okay, I just want to go play with my brothers. I don't care. I don't feel like you get a release from $17 million to go take a reduced contract and play for third place in the AFC North. I just don't see that. Like I've said, like I think the most logical choice for him is Tampa. That just seems like where I would go if I was JJ Watt, like as much as I'd like to see him on the Browns. But at the same time, if I'm the Browns, I don't know what I'm like. What do you think a fair contract for JJ Watt is? Like, I think we're in agreement that 17 million is a little bit high for what he is. I don't want to, like, in a way you got to kind of pay for his name, but like if he wants more than like 10, maybe 12 million for like, something like a $25 million with 20 million guaranteed over 2 years. Like, I can't see signing him. I just don't see it.
And the funny thing is they're not even talking Tampa a whole lot. It's, they're talking Titans, Steelers, Browns, and Ravens.
I've seen Patriots mentioned a couple times. But they don't have a quarterback. That's the thing. There's all these teams that are up in the air. And again, if I'm JJ Watt, I feel like there are enough actual teams in contention, the Browns, the Chiefs, the Titans. There are enough teams in contention. Even the Colts, to me, makes more sense, because I feel like out of all the teams that don't have like a solid, this is our quarterback going into next year, I feel like the Colts are most likely to get a solid quarterback going for next year. I feel like they're going to end up with somebody. So like, I just feel like there's enough in contention teams that could use his services that it doesn't make sense for him to go anywhere else outside of, like, they're really because like I've seen Chicago, and it's like, why would you go to? I don't understand what that does for you. Like, I don't get it.
The only team not mentioned that makes sense to me would be the Rams, right?
Right.
The Rams are playing for right now. Period. Right. They're that's and you add him to that defense. I mean, that defense is insane.
Right. Yeah. And well, in the Rams kind of, it's funny because the Rams, in my opinion, kind of like, if I was ever an actual GM of an actual club, the Rams kind of play into my drafting philosophy anyway. They're like, we plan on constantly picking in the late 20s with our picks. And at that point, the odds of landing a bona fide star are no better than early second round. So screw our first round picks. I will trade, because I don't think they have a first round draft pick until 2025 or something like that. You know what? Good for them. They're in Super Bowl talk for next year. So who cares about 2025 when you can win the Super Bowl in 2022? So I agree with them, and that does, I didn't think about the Rams, so that makes a lot of sense because that fits their agenda. That fits their MO as to what they would do, is bring in a big defensive name to help bolster that line and go from there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What offseason trades would you like to see the Eagles make, or moves? I shouldn't just say trade, moves. Like,
So it's a tough one, man. I want to see them trade Howie to the Jets for Joe Douglas. That's what I want to see happen. Right. But we all know that's not going to happen. I mean, the Eagles are in such a fucking vortex right now. I don't know what to think, right? Like from a coaching staff perspective, and I'm just going on eye test here, right? Like I like the look of this coaching staff. They're a bunch of young dudes. They look like they're in shape. It's a little bit different than like the old school out of shape older guys. You know, I like the younger guys that look like they stay in shape. It just seems they got a little bit more energy. They're a little bit more intense, and they relate to players better. So I like the look, but it's do we get the Kevin Stefanski situation? Do we get that with Sirianni? I don't know. Who knows? I don't like the idea that they're shopping Carson Wentz. I think the Eagles did him dirty. Did he play bad this past year? Yeah. But he also passed for 4,000 yards the previous season with nobody to throw to, a bunch of practice squad dudes. No Eagle quarterbacks ever thrown for 4,000 yards. He did it with nobodies and a beat up line. And his line was beat up way worse. I think their line is not as bad as it looks, right? Because we had a bunch of people hurt this past year, like everybody. So, if they can come back healthy, you got Brooks and Johnson coming back healthy. You still got Kelsey, and you got the dude they drafted. I think it's Dillard, right? So like they have a decent line if they're healthy. But I think too much damage has been done, right? Like Wentz once gone, it's over. Call it a day. Move on with Hurts. I'm not sold on Hurts. I wouldn't be surprised if they pick a fucking quarterback with the 6th pick at all, which would just piss me off. I might leave the team for a year. I don't know. But I think that, they want to haul for Carson Wentz and they're not getting it. So we got a lot of teams waiting in the wings. I think he's worth 2 firsts. That's just me. Then you have Zach Ertz, who also I don't want to see go away. But from a business perspective, that's a lot of money on the table with those 2 guys, right? So like 2 out of your starting 11 are chewing up probably 40-50% of your salary. And then you're going to have to pay Miles Davis at some point in time, or Miles Davis. I've been listening to Jazz a lot lately. You're going to have to pay him eventually. So, maybe now's the time. If you can package the both of them together, makes a lot of sense. I think Indianapolis would like both of them.
Right.
And they both fit. So that's the team that intrigues me the most. Gorky probably don't want to hear it, but I could see him switching greens and going to the Jets too.
Yeah, I feel like at this point the Jets are that other team that I just feel like there's so much, like, I don't want to say animosity. That's not the right word. I just feel like there's been so much talk about them getting a new quarterback that they kind of have to at this point. Like, and if it's like, and honestly, just out of all the quarterbacks, not to knock, obviously, I just, Justin Fields just doesn't feel like an upgrade to me. Like, I don't see why Justin Fields is considered any better than Jalen Hurts. I just don't see it. Like, now, granted, I don't watch a ton of Ohio State football, even though I'm from Ohio, but every time I've seen him, like, don't get me wrong, good quarterback. And I think if he goes to the right place and maybe gets to sit behind someone for a year, he can be all right. But I just don't see the Jets taking him. I don't know why you would. He just doesn't seem. I mean, he seems undersized. I feel like you could break Justin Fields, and that's what scares me most about him. He just seems real. You look at some of the other quarterbacks, and I just don't see him taking. He doesn't seem like a guy who can hold up to a lot of punishment on a team that's drafting in the top 5 that has other holes besides just a quarterback. Justin Fields, I feel like, is one of those classic situations where because we overweight the quarterback positions to so much, a guy that should be going like probably in the second round is going to end up in the top 10 and, and get thrown out there because he's a top 10 pick and he's not ready for it.
I 100% agree, right? And it's the Jets too, right? Like, so if I'm the Jets, I'm weary about taking a quarterback. Like Sam Darnold in my mind had the most upside, most coachable, right? Coming out of college that year. But he wound up on the Jets and he wound up with poor coaching and, no real identity on the Jets. Like Adam Gase, come on, man. Like that dude's a whack job.
Right. Well, and if you look at what he's gone through, same thing that Baker. I mean, and look what happened to Baker once he got the right coach.
Yep.
So, if I'm the Jets today, I either trade that second pick down and get some more, turn it into additional picks to actually give Darnold some weapons, and I just roll the dice and see what Saleh can do. I mean, take a year on him, and if 8-9 games he still is doing horribly, like you still don't think he's the answer, then start looking at next year's draft class. But I just feel like he's got the same thing Baker did, and we saw what happened once Baker got an actual coaching staff behind him. Like, again, he's not all world, but he's definitely a solid quarterback. And Browns are one of the few teams that are not worried about their quarterback position going into next year. So, I mean, I really think if I'm them, unless I can land Deshaun Watson, I just roll the dice with Darnold and just see what happens.
I roll the dice. I mean, who needs a quarterback? Carolina's right up there. They got what, the 8th pick, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They need a quarterback bad,
right?
So trade down 6 spots. You're still looking at probably landing, one of the 2 top receivers coming out of the draft, right? Mm-hmm. Which they need desperately,
right? Well, and I know we've all kind of touched on packaging Ertz to, the Colts, but I mean, he's out there, Will Fuller's out there, and they have a ton of cap space. So, I mean, you could turn that team around really quick with a savvy draft and a couple key free agents. Because, I mean, their defense isn't horrible. Their defense was like I want to say like late, like 16th or 17th. No, wait, now I think about it. Never mind. Their defense was real bad. Now I think about it. I remember looking at that. Their defense was, but is it their defense are they that bad, or is it, well, we're just on the field so much, of course we're going to give up the most yards because our offense is so bad. Of course we're going to give up the most yards and whatever, because while their defense was bad, their offense was equally bad. Like their offense was only putting up like, I think 12 points a game, something like that. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know if their defense is bad so much as their defense was just exposed a lot because they're constantly on the field.
So let me ask you, let's pivot away and back to the Eagles, right? Eagles have the 6th pick. And chances are Chase or Smith are going to be there at 6. Do you take a wide receiver there?
So here's my take on wide receivers. They're good, don't get me wrong, but I think they're like icing on the cake. I don't feel like you need to use a 6th pick on a receiver when you have other needs. The Eagles, when I look at the Eagles, they have question marks at quarterback, which I don't necessarily think they should solve through the draft. I think they need to find a way to appease Wentz, or at least roll another year with Hurts to see what they got there. Give him more than one game under, the new coach. They have like you said, their line can come back. If I'm the Eagles, I go defense. I look at maybe what's that guy out of Penn State, Micah Parsons, the linebacker, something like that. Like I bolster the defense, because receivers, to me, receivers are a good. Yeah, we're picking like in the like mid-teens kind of pick. Like I don't feel like the Eagles are in a place where they should be worried about their wide receiving core when they can pick up a couple free agents and do just as well. I feel like if you're drafting wide receivers, you're signaling, yeah, we're almost there. You know what I'm saying? And I just don't think that's where the Eagles are right now.
So top 2 positions I think they need to fill: secondary and linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think that The Penn State linebacker coming out is probably the top linebacker coming out. I think he's probably gone. Top
At
5.
At
Yeah.
6 though?
Yeah.
Like where do you think he go? I have to look at the draft order. I mean, because obviously, I mean, Jacksonville's taking a quarterback. Jets are a wild card, but let's be honest, they'll probably take a quarterback. Who's after the Jets? I don't even know.
Miami.
I mean, their defense is pretty stout. I don't think they take him. I don't think that's their need. I think they would take a lineman or maybe well, I mean, Miami's the only team because who's the rest of the 5? Miami,
Falcons, and Bengals.
Falcons will take a quarterback. Bengals will go line. Bengals will take an offensive lineman. They're not gonna take a linebacker this year because they need to protect Burrow. So really, the only team there that would take something other than quarterback, that would take a linebacker could possibly be Miami. I don't know enough about Miami to say necessarily what I think they need, but every other team, 3 of those teams would take a quarterback and Bengals would take offensive line. So, I mean, at 6, you have a shot at him.
Or cornerback, and you got Patrick Surtain the second.
Yeah. I mean, is he shutdown quality? Is he?
I think he is.
I mean, yeah, you can never the ability to have a shutdown corner that you can just stick on somebody and then double team whoever else you need to is epic. So, yeah, I mean, I think if I'm the Eagles, that's where I go. I bolster the defense. And I know it's hard because, drafting a cornerback in the top 6 isn't sexy, but that's where you make that's how you build your team. You get everything solidified. Unless there's like a generational Megatron type talent, like that's the only way you take that kind of receiver. Like none of the receivers, they're good, but they're not like they're not Megatron. You're not drafting Chris Carter. You're not drafting Randy Moss. Like that type of quarter receiver, sure. Outside of that, if you want to take a receiver, trade back and get more picks and then draft someone in the mid-teens.
For me, I think as long as they don't take a quarterback or that tight end from Florida, I'm okay. But I could see either one happening, especially if they trade Carson Wentz. I could see them taking a quarterback. I could see them trying to trade up to get, and we spoke about him already, Justin Fields, for whatever reason, how he's got in his brain like he wants his QB factory, right? So why not have Fields and Hurts, which would be stupid.
Which they're both, and for I see them as the same basic quarterback. Like I don't understand like why you would. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, since we're talking about the Eagles, I kind of want to segue to the Browns a little bit, just because I've been pretty good about not talking them a whole lot the last couple of these we've done. Their big needs are on defense. And the thing is, they got a couple. Like, here's the thing. I think they just need to load up as much defense as they can, see what they got, and go with the best defense they can put on the field next year. So what I'd actually like to see them do, and just partly because I'm tired of seeing trade rumors for him anyway, I'd like to see them trade Odell to Dallas, get Gallup and a pick, because Jerry loves his receivers. So I think everyone wins. It puts him back in the East. He can play the Giants twice a year, which, deep down he wants to do. And I think he works with Dak. I think that, that helps that, although they're kind of low. I mean, so who would their receivers be? Their receivers would be Odell. It would be CeeDee Lamb. And who's the other guy that they just got from the Raiders? I'm blanking on his name on the Cowboys. Cooper. There you go. I mean, that's the best wide receiver core in the league, if nothing else. I mean, yeah. Because, it all depends on what Odell is coming back. But, I think that helps the Browns, because the Browns I don't really think – I think there are times we need Odell, but I think overall we'll do fine without Odell. And don't get me wrong, I like Odell. My current Browns jersey is Odell Beckham, and he's done nothing wrong. This isn't like a character thing or anything like that. I think we have bigger needs, and we don't need to be paying what we're paying him. Him and Landry, I think we're paying like combined like $30 million against the cap every year. Like, I just don't think we need that. No. That being said, I'd like to see them try and get Watts. And we have a couple chips too. We can trade Njoku, who is a former first round. I wouldn't mind them giving up their first round pick for the proper person. If we can do like Njoku in a first or Njoku in a second for something on defense, like a linebacker of some kind. It's weird. Our linebackers are kind of weird because they're not rated that low, but at the same time, none of them are like players I think anyone else looks at and is like, oh, I want him on my team. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't have like a Ray Lewis or something like that, but Taki is apparently like a top 20 linebacker. Who knew? Not me, but but he is. I really think for me it kind of depends if they get Watt or not. If they get Watt and like another defensive edge to like just solidify the line and go from there, because we also our secondary needs help, but our starting secondary was injured all last year. Like Delpit, who was our pick last year, and then Greedy Williams, who's supposed to be other corner, was injured all last year. So that ideally should get better in a hurry. So we'll see. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting draft for the Browns. This is the first time they don't have super glaring needs other than like replacing aging players.
Let's say they don't get Watts, right?
Right.
I think they need to look at D-line. I think they need someone opposite of what's his fucking name? Garrett, helmet guy. Yeah. That dude, that edge guy out of Miami, Rousseau, I think is his name. He's pretty, does he last till 26? I mean, depends on who you talk to, but like most of the mock drafts I'm looking at have a ton of offensive side players going in the first round, a ton, right? And there's a ton of talent there. So, 5 quarterbacks are slated to go in the first round. So you have that there. You have, 3 top receivers that are slated to go in the first round. So now you're at 8 players. You got a couple running backs. You got Surtain's a great quarterback. You got Parsons linebacker. So, the more you start adding it up, he might drop till 26. He might, if he's not there, I think you're kind of stuck,
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, because I've been looking at the defensive linemen at least. Hey, obviously I'm not a scout. So I just go off of what publications say. It seems to me after him, there's just a huge drop off, and they're like everyone's saying like, yeah, second, third round, maybe a top second round pick. So yeah, that's the thing about picking 26 this year. I just don't see a player that fills a need being there at 26, because like our offense is set. So the only thing that makes sense for the Browns to do is either trade up for like a Micah Parsons, try and trade up into the top 8 and hope Micah Parsons falls to you, or just trade back and see what you can do in free agency. I luckily free agency comes first this year, so like heading into the draft, where JJ Watt will be answered, and stuff like that. And even if we do get JJ Watt, I don't necessarily think he's the necessary answer. Like he's the permanent answer. Like I look at him as an upgrade over Vernon, which we had, who did well. Don't get me wrong, but we can't. I can't say with any certainty that on paper it sounds good, but that JJ Watt's going to play all year. So I just banking on him being the missing piece on the defensive line. I think he's definitely an upgrade over what we have. But I'd like to see something to back him up as well, because sooner or later he's going to get injured, because that's just what's been happening to him, unfortunately. Yeah, but I'm in agreement. If that guy, the dude out of Miami is not there at 26, I don't, that's going to be a tough call. What you do, I say you just trade back at that point, because I don't see anything that we need at 26 worth making the 26th pick on. Like, unless you want to shock the world and draft like some quarterback, like just for shits and giggles to make a QB controversy that doesn't need to be in Cleveland.
What's weird to me is for me, it's the line. The line is where you build, and there's not a whole lot of offensive linemen that are being talked about in the first round until you get later in the round. Same thing with defensive linemen. So it's you got those 2 guys out of Alabama. I can't think of their names, but they're beasts, right? And their offensive line this year was insane. So you have you have a tackle and a guard that are both sitting there and no one's talking about them. So like they'll probably slip into the second round. Which is the only lineman that's getting a lot of chatter is that Penny Sewell from Oregon, who sat out a year.
Right. That's the other thing too. That's a little weird because there's a lot of players that didn't play this year in college because they didn't want to risk anything, and they have their draft positions like Mika Parsons, Parsons, sorry, he didn't play this year. And so you have a lot of players like him who are kind of like, I don't know if they maybe fell off the radar a little bit by, falling out of our conscious for a bit, but it's going to be an interesting offseason just because there's going to be a lot more QB movement. I mean, that's the thing too. When all these QB trades finally settle, like who's going to have what? Like the top 15 picks might not look anything like they look like right now because of all the trades and moves and everything else that's going to happen between now and draft day. It's definitely going to be interesting. So one other thing I did want to do today, just since it is Valentine's Day, if you were to give a Valentine to anyone in the NFL, who's your NFL Valentine there, Loy?
Oof. Tom Brady. No, I'm just kidding. Seriously though, like I like him more. I don't want to say I'm in love with Tom Brady, but like winning the Super Bowl, seeing a side of Tom Brady that I've never seen before, being out of Belichick's, Gestapo like fucking regime,
right,
is refreshing, and like I kind of like him a little bit, right? Like I'm like,
you're
this guy.
Did you hear the story that the daughter of the guy that created the Super Bowl trophy wants him to apologize for throwing it from the one boat to the other?
No.
Yeah, no, I'm dead serious. Like she's apparently like put out saying like I haven't been able to sleep since I saw that happen. It's like, okay, calm down a little bit. Like it's a football trophy. Like relax. It's not like he was out there throwing like an active landmine between two boats. He threw a Super Bowl trophy. It's okay. If that's the only thing you think that a player has done with the Super Bowl trophy since come on. Like if that's the worst thing you think has happened to a Super Bowl trophy in the last 40 years, yikes.
I mean, good question though. Like who would I give it to? And I'm trying to think of somebody outside of the Eagles.
Oh, right? you can do Eagles because mine's definitely a Brown. I can give you mine if you want. We can. So at first, my first thought honestly was Jarvis Landry, because he kind of ended the whole "you go to Cleveland to die" mantra. So Jarvis Landry deciding on the Browns, coming there, and he almost a little bit installed some of the culture we see. I mean, I know he's been there a couple of years now, and we had 2019, which didn't go as planned, but he's kind of installed some of that, like, hey, look, like we don't have to be a joke of a franchise. Like that kind of started with him. So he was my first thought. Then obviously I went to Kevin Stefanski, who I feel I owed a little bit of apology to because last year I was all over Saleh. That's who I wanted to hire. And Stefanski was obviously the right answer for the Browns. He fit the talent we had. So he was one. But, there's no one else I can give it to on the Browns other than one Nicholas Chubb, who I've been told a couple times in the league or a couple times in the group anyway, that isn't elite for some reason. But he's the heart and soul of the Browns. He's a definite, and he's one of those players where I get he's a Brown, so this sounds like a homer thing, but he's one of those players where if he's on your team, you love him because he doesn't talk, he doesn't give other teams bulletin board material. He puts his helmet on and he rushes for 100 yards a game. Like he's and even though we have Hunt, so even if when he went out, it's not a big drop, like it's still different with him out there. He just brings there's just a calmness to him. He's a good dude. So my football Valentine goes to I'm sorry, I almost said Creemont, goes to Nicholas Chubb. May you forever be a Brown. I love you, big guy. What do you got, Loy?
So I'm gonna go three different teams. I'm gonna go Fletcher Cox, right? Just because he's a fun dude and he's a beast and he's a staple. Doesn't quit. He likes to have a lot of fun. And I just think he's an all-around good team guy, right?
Mhm.
So then I'm going to take it a different avenue, right? I'm going to go back to my fantasy football year, and I think I finished. Did I finish second in the league?
Yeah, you lost. I believe you lost in the championship to JD, right?
I did, and the reason, and like I lost my number one pick for let's just say the entire season because I had Chris McCaffrey. But Justin Abear was a late pickup for me. Had him on my bench. I think I drafted him, and he turned out to be one of my top fantasy point getters for the season. So thank you, Justin. A little Valentine love for you. And then I'm gonna go with Nick Chubb because that was I had a nice draft, right? And Nick Chubb was my turnaround. Like I took McCaffrey, and then I think I took Keenan, and then Chubb, for 2-3, and like I was looking fucking sweet, and Chubb was another mainstay, right? Him getting hurt midseason hurt me a little bit, but like he was just a beast and quality point getter all season long. He is definitely a top 5 running back in the league. If you don't agree with that, then you eat salt for breakfast. That's what you do.
Probably root for the Steelers.
There's no other reason to say that he's like, it's just, even like there's games I'm watching Chubb play, and like he'd have 11 carries for like 38 yards, and I'll be like, fuck, I'm not getting any points this game. And then bam, 60-yard run. And then bam, like a little 2-yard punch in for a touchdown. Now he's got 20 points. And I'm like, sweet.
Well, and and again, not to turn this into the Nicholas Chubb hour, but the other thing I like about him is he recognizes holes in his game. And he says, like, at the end of the year, he said, I could do a lot. Like, we seem to do really well at screen passes. I should learn to catch more. And so, and it's just like he instantly recognizes things and says, I'm going to get better at this. And and I truly believe he's one of the guys. Like, I really would like to see him kind of pull Baker into his world and be like, listen, this is what we have to do in the offseason, like, to improve. Yeah, I'll go ahead and give, let's see, I don't even know who the top fantasy point. My team was very streaky this year in fantasy football, like, because I decided to try something different and go with wide receivers as my top pick, which I usually don't do, but I was late first, I was a later pick in the first round. So all the good running back, like with the exception of Chubb, but by that point I was so singled in on receivers, even though he fell that far, I didn't even it didn't even dawn on me because I already knew what I was picking. That being said, I would like to give a little love to Tampa Bay running back Ronald Johnson, the third. Either way, or Ronald Jones. I'm sorry, not Johnson. Jones. He was I think I got him in the 5th or 6th round, and he was up there. He was one of the best backs, except for the times he got injured. I mean, he had a 98-yard run, which for a touchdown, which won me a game. So in the interest of my fantasy football team, we're gonna give a little Valentine's Day shout out to Rojo. And I think he's shaping up to be. He should be the number 1 back there next year. I don't know why they won't just give him the ball, because he seems to do it. Like, if you want to keep him as a main back and then put in Fournette as like a bruiser at the goal line, fine. But I don't get why they're trying to like split time like they are with him, because in my mind, I think Rojo is the way better running back there. I think Fournette's more of a name, but I think Rojo's the better overall, like, every down running back.
So no love for Tyreek Hill? I mean, he'll put up quarterback numbers for fantasy. Like,
he did, but
that's impressive.
But then his team knocked the Browns out of the playoffs.
All right.
So
all right.
I'll give him an attaboy. How about that? He can have an attaboy. No Valentine's love, but he can have an attaboy. I'll draft. If you're available next year when I come to draft Tariq, I will take a good strong look at you. How about that?
Yeah. So since we're talking about fantasy, how about the way too early number 1 pick for fantasy football next year? Who should go first?
Who should go first?
Yeah.
I mean, It's got to be a running back. I mean, I'm in a class. I'm a classic guy when it comes to that stuff. Like you go running back. So it's going to be a toss up between Henry, depending on how good McCaffrey looks off season coming back from injury. And I think Chubb's going to be up there. I don't. Chubb fell to the set, like you said, the second or third. I mean, I get you were the turnaround, but there's no reason why he should fall that far again. Not in a 12-team league. That's a little ridiculous that he fell that far. I think it's going to be them. I'm sure there's someone I'm forgetting. But yeah, it's got to be one of those three running backs, right? Like you take a top 5 running back. There's just no way around it.
Yeah.
I think the overreaction pick. I think the overreaction pick, and you're going to see someone take him way too early, is Aaron Rodgers. I think you're going to see Aaron Rodgers go in the top 3, maybe 4 rounds. And in my mind, in my not quite expert mind when it comes to fantasy football, that's too early to take a quarterback. But I think he is going to be the overreaction pick, and you're going to see him get picked up way before he should.
I agree 100%. I think I mean, I'm not a believer in taking quarterbacks in the first 5 rounds.
Right.
Just not. I got stuck on my team, and it almost bit me in the ass with taking way too many quarterbacks. Right, like COVID scared me. Right, and like I didn't want to be stuck without a quarterback, so I had like 4 quarterbacks on my team at one point in time, and then I didn't want to give them up because I didn't want to give anybody an advantage. Be like, oh, let me take Matt Ryan because he was putting up some points. I had Carson Wentz, and I just that's a homer move. I should have let him go a lot sooner than I did. So, but again, I think you're going to see a lot of once we get past the top 5 running backs, you're going to see a wave of receivers go. And if you're taking out anything outside of that, unless you're looking at, even the tight ends, right? Like for a few years there was 3 or 4 tight ends that were worthy of a first 3 rounds pick, right? Not necessarily anymore, right? Like where'd Waller go? Waller was a stud.
I actually had Waller this year, and I got him 8th-ish round. It was later. It was I don't remember exactly, but it was back there, and he wasn't even on my board, and it was just one of those things where, like, yeah, whatever round came around, I'm like, oh, he's still here. Yeah. Okay, like, because I know you and I were talking the day that happened, and we were talking the day of the draft, and I'm pretty sure that's what it came. I mean, I forget what round I took him in, but it was a later round. And I'm like, oh, he's still here. That's sweet. So I drafted him. Like, I mean, outside of Patrick Mahomes, you shouldn't be drafting a quarterback in the top 3 picks. There's too much depth at quarterback, especially in PPR leagues. Like you don't need, I came in. I mean, I kind of puttered out in the playoffs because I stopped caring after I lost in the second round or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But I finished I was constantly tied for first in our division throughout the year, and I don't even remember who I think Stafford was my quarterback.
You had Stafford.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, and I got hurt by trades because I traded you for Galladay, and then he didn't play another game. I think I got 1 game of Galladay, and he was out the rest of the season.
And somebody was making a stint about that too. Who did I get from you? I got DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, you got. I got Dalton, which didn't go anywhere, but I bought into the hype, so that's fine. That's on me. I got Dalton. I got Galladay, who at the time was a top 5 receiver, and I got that's who I wanted. That whole trade was based around me wanting him.
Yeah.
Because I had Odell, and Odell got injured, so I wanted someone to replace Odell. So yeah, him, and then you got Swift. You got another running back from the Giants, and I forget we had 3rd players in there, but I don't remember who they were. You gave me the dude from Jacksonville, who then sat on my bench the rest of the year.
Yeah,
and I forget who the 3rd player I gave you was, but there was another probably benchy type player. I just know you got 2 running backs. One of them was you got Freeman, you got Swift, and you got someone else. I don't remember who. Probably one of my backup quarterbacks or something. I don't remember.
I knew it was Swift, and I want to say it wasn't Gallman, it was the other dude.
Freeman. It was Freeman because it was right after because I had him on my bench, and then he got signed because it was just one of those like we had extra bench spots this year, so he was just sitting on my bench in case he got signed, and then he got signed by New York after Saquon went down. I think he had 2 games where he put up like 12 points, and I traded him. I was like, yeah, I don't need him, so yeah. No, I love fantasy football. I think about fantasy football all year. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I watch who gets drafted and base like, you know, I start doing mock drafts like after the draft. Like, I love fantasy football.
I do a lot of look into the last 6 weeks of the season. Like who came on at the end of the season that's going to be probably starting next year, especially receivers, because then you can catch them in the 6th, 7th, 8th round, and you have a lot of quality receivers on your team at that point in time.
What do you have any sleeper picks for next year? Anyone you think that's going to be under the radar that is going to do better than expected?
I don't know about a sleeper pick at this point in time, but like I took Justin Jefferson, and that was a quality pick for me. He should improve on his year, and he had a solid year. I think Jalen Guyton might be a sleeper out of with the Chargers because he's got Bear. I mean, it's gonna depend a lot on where the quarterbacks line up, right? That's if Jacksonville, if dude can play ball at an NFL level, you got Chenault at Jacksonville that I think is going to be another stud because he showed flashes, and he had
that was the other guy, and that was the Jacksonville receiver I got from you in the trade. Yeah, and at that point he was putting up like 10 points. I just had better receivers. I was just stacked at receiver this year, until everyone got injured at the end of the year. But yeah, my sleeper, and I think it's more of a stigma thing, but I think Baker Mayfield is going to be someone that slips into the later rounds just because of who he is and the stigma around him. But I just think he's going to put up solid numbers. The only problem with Baker really, because he's got weapons, he's got a good offensive line. I think the problem with Baker is, and he's got that stigma of turning the ball over a lot, but he really doesn't. In the last 9 games, I think he only threw like 1 or 2 interceptions. That being said, the only thing going against Baker is he plays his home games in Cleveland, and there's just going to be like 2 or 3 games out of the year where they just rely completely on the running game because there's like 80-mile-an-hour winds and he can't throw the ball at all. Yeah, that's the only thing about him. But I think Baker is going to be a sleeper next year. I think he'll be someone you can pick up in a later round who's going to pay dividends, at some point in the season, whether it be you fill him in, your starter goes down or something. He's going to end up starting for whoever by the end of the year. The other guy I have my eye on is Herbert from the quarterback from Chargers.
Yeah,
I want to my thing, and I probably shouldn't be saying this to a guy I draft against, but my thing was to pair him with Allen because I like to have a QB and a receiver or QB and a tight end on my team all the time. I didn't do that this year, and it drove me nuts. So I traded for. That's the other reason why I traded for Galladay. But that's always been something I try to do where I pair the quarterback with at least one of the receivers on my team, and I think him and Allen will be a good handcuff, so to speak, next year.
I had them both.
Yeah, how'd that work out?
It worked out pretty well. Was in the championship
for a while, right? Yeah.
Allen got hurt though. That kind of put the kibosh on that for at the end of the season.
Right.
Like, you gotta be kidding me, man. You've been putting up 20 points a game, and then I get into the playoffs and you're hurt. It's terrible.
Right.
And then I had Aguilar on my team, and I never started him because I couldn't. But like, I don't know. Shoulda. Turned out to be somebody that could catch the ball.
Yeah, who knew? Who knew on him?
So it should be interesting.
Yeah, well, I think we're about out of time here. Do you any other parting thoughts on free agency or the draft or?
No, man. I think we should do if we can get everybody back on. I think we should do a mock draft.
That'd be fun. Yeah, I like that. I like where that's at. I'd have to research a little bit. I haven't done a whole lot because the Browns are later in the draft this year. Yeah, no, that could be really fun. I do have some other last minute Valentines. I think that other people would give out if I may really quick.
Yeah.
Obviously Matthew Hazan has already moved. He's moved in with Brady. He's living in his basement. So clearly that's one. Atticus, I'm sure has professed his love for Danny Dimes by this point. Who do you think? Gorky's been high on. I can't think of the lineman's name, but that lineman they drafted last year.
Gorky's in love with Salah.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that is fair. Salah is very attractive. I can see why. JD and Rosie, they don't really talk about any, like JD seems to have a thing for Randall Cunningham.
JD also has a thing for Zach Ertz, and she will be
That's
distraught and maybe not inconsolable for maybe an entire month if they trade him. So
I apologize for your loss, JD, if you're watching out there, which I'm sure you are. Shout out to you. Rosie, does she have any favorite players? I can't really think Rosie just talks general trash. I never hear her talk about specific players. I feel like she just pipes up and makes fun of people every now and again.
I don't think she has a favorite player.
I feel like I've seen her stand up for Miles Sanders a couple times, or maybe that was JD. One of them stands up for Miles Sanders all the time. So we're just gonna say her Valentine's Miles Sanders.
There you go.
Who else has usually been on here? That's it.
Andy.
Oof. I mean, he told me he likes Taki on the Browns, so he's gonna give a Valentine's to Taki. Okay. Taki is the jersey I want. I want to get a Taki jersey for no other reason than it's Taki.
So there was real, and I'll end on this note, right? Like there was some brief talk about, and it was a bullshit post on one of those meme pages, whatever. But like they threw Roquan Smith into the mix for the Carson Wentz trade to Chicago. I was like, make that trade all fucking day long. 2 firsts and Roquan Smith. Come on now. Let me take that guy.
Yeah, I always find meme pages funny just because people like I don't know if it's a matter of like they just way overvalue or they're just like, yeah, like it's always something like, yeah, we're just gonna trade like this guy that sits on our bench and like our 4th round pick, and the Giants are gonna give us Saquon Barkley. It's like, no, they're not. Like that's not how any of this works. So you know who the Eagles should sign? I was thinking about it just as a solid back, like, because I'm convinced after seeing it work in Cleveland this year, you can never have like a good running back, even if all your running backs are studs. It's never a bad thing. I think you guys should sign. And now that I'm about to say this, I can't think of his name. He was just on the Ravens. Big Truss. God, what's his name?
Oh, Mark Ingram.
Mark Ingram. There you go. I think he would be a good change of pace back, or even just give Miles Sanders a rest back. I mean, Boston's not bad, but I don't know if you want him as your solid number 2. But I feel like if you're going to do a running back by committee, but have, Sanders be your lead, I think Ingram would be a good fit there. I feel like he's got I feel like he's at a place in his career where he's not expecting to be the lead back, and he's got but I still think he's got a few good years left in him to just fill up that role.
I can see that. I like it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I feel like that's a good place to end.
All right, man.
All right. Happy Valentine's Day, bro.
Have a good Valentine's Day. Happy one. And I'll see you next week.
Definitely. Take it easy.
All right, man.
Bye.
Bye.